City of Wausau Parks and Recreation Committee. This is Monday, April 7th, and I'll be calling this meeting to order. And we'll start out with agenda item number 1, approval of the minutes of the March 3rd, 2024 meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve has been made by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Neal. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And thank you. And on to item number 2, discussion and possible action approving lease of the River Life Concession Building to CMA Wausau LLC for seasonal operation of ice cream and quick serve food item business. Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. So the last time this was in front of you, we had 2 proposals, and then we had the going back to each proposal with the times, the dates, the lease amounts and stuff like that. And so from there, we moved forward with CMA Wausau LLC, and the owner is here if we have any questions for him. But I highlighted, so the lease is in your packet, and I apologize for it being updated a few times, so we had the date wrong. And but that's the draft lease, so that's what will go to City Council tomorrow. We are doing that in order to hopefully get it approved tomorrow so that they can move forward with getting prepped in operations to be able to open with June 1 being this year's date. Going forward, it would open in May, but this year being that's in a couple of weeks, the lease is starting in June. So you'll see that it's June 1st. Oh, I didn't update this actually when I updated I didn't update the committee or the summary that I put in there, but I did update the lease itself. So the dates are actually June 1st this year until October 31st of 2026. So it gets us through this season and next season. A typical lease goes to October 31st. And then there'll be a 2-year renewal options after that. And there's a 120-day notice that they can give us if they choose not to renew after 2 years next October. Dates of operations for this year would be the June 1st through October 31st. Next year would be the May 1st through October 31st, but the months of May before Memorial Day and the dates after Labor Day, maybe Friday evening, Saturday and Sunday weather allowing, just based on the kids being in school and the weather and that sort of thing. Otherwise, typical hours will be Tuesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. We'll have ice cream, shakes, pizza. They're working on their menu. That's what their proposal had. Lease amounts that we came to, we had talked about those different amounts during the dates where they were partially open or not open. They do have a year, they're paying all 12 months, but it is, as I mentioned in here, $900 a month at June through August when they're fully operational. $700 a month at May, September, and October, so a slight decrease when they're open on the weekends. And then $450 a month, so just half that cost on the November through April, just to help, or just to keep everything in the building. The building will be secured and stuff like that, as we've had in the past. As far as the restrooms go, the city will maintain the restrooms as we did previously, although they would put in their proposal that they would like to assist us because they feel that the restrooms reflect on their business as well. So we'll work in partnership with them on making sure that that area, in addition to the outside area in the park, is clean and presentable. So those are the main highlights of the lease, and then there's, legal items that our city attorney can probably answer on there, but it is recommended. I think we've come up with a really good operational plan with them for the next 2 years. I'm excited to have them in and partner with us. So I recommend to the Parks and Recreation Committee approval of the lease and recommending it to City Council for tomorrow night.
Thank you, Ms. Polly. Alder Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, of course, I do support this, and we'll vote for it. I have a question for the gentleman. If you'd like to come up to the dais, please. Maybe a question, maybe recommendation, I don't know. But, in the past, from the previous business that was there, by the nature of the offerings, we would see straws and lids, plastic, by the trail side from people that just are wonderful people. So I'm not a big fan of that, right there on the river. So anything that the business might do to minimize the use of plastics. Maybe, there are other options sometimes. Also, maybe a by request sort of model where if you want a lid, we'll give you a lid, but otherwise there's not a lid. If you want a straw, we'll give you a straw. Otherwise, there's no straw, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Anything else, like the wooden spoon, anything, I don't know, just to kind of get away from that aspect of it. So I would really appreciate it, even if it could be phased in over time. Maybe, your initial inventory might not be that way, but you might find a way to work your way into it. So
Sure.
just wanted to have that out there.
Yeah, and I think to Jamie's point, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, with keeping up on the restrooms, same thing. We the business is going to be tied to our current business, but we really take pride in keeping the outside grounds clean and keeping the restrooms clean and keeping that image high. And certainly with less product, if we can be more eco-friendly there, it saves us dollars at the end of the day as well. So we're certainly open to that suggestion.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you.
Alder Rasmussen.
Exciting to see. It looks like based on your negotiation back and forth, you've come to exactly what we asked for. So excited to see operations starting there for our season, and then even adding some extra offerings that we didn't have before. So very exciting to see that. With that, I'll make a motion to approve the lease as drafted.
Thank you, Alder Rasmussen. Alder Lukens.
I'll second that. Excuse me.
Second by Alder Lukens. Any further discussion on item number 2? Then I guess we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor of item number 2 as the leases for the River Life Park is drawn up, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that passes unanimously. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3, discussion and possible action approving First Amendment to the Athletic Park Use Agreement for Wausau College Softball LLC, WCS.
Yes, so this is a First Amendment where you just approved, the Parks Committee and the City Council just approved the use agreement with Woodchucks last year for their softball team that's starting here very shortly. I know they are unveiling the name, I think, on Wednesday, so that's exciting. But what came about this is, in this still, so this is a draft form, and I have it in draft because Mark and I, or Mr. McDonald from the Woodchucks and I have put this together as far as what we would like it to say, but I had sent it to city attorney, and I still need to have her. This won't go to council tomorrow. This will go after she's had a chance to look at it and make sure that the wording is correct. This is based on past amendments, so I used that same format. But in the concept of it, the two things that we are updating with this is the combined, or 3 things actually, is definition of the combined facility. So they want that to include the sidewalk right outside the entrance area. That's where their line forms constantly when they're, that's where, as people are getting in, buying their tickets, their line forms there. So right now the combined premise is really just inside the fence. It doesn't include, well, it does include like a couple of squares of concrete right out where they're buying their tickets, but it doesn't extend to the curb where there's people. And they have ran into some issues last year with being able to control that area because it's not part of their combined facility while people were buying tickets. So that is where the combined facilities come in. The second one is the rental fee. Actually, this for the First Amendment to softball, the rental fee doesn't change. What we did when we did this use agreement was we made it easier for the fee to increase each year based on a look back, and that's why the baseball one is next. This is actually extending the contract for 10 years based on what you initially approved. That is coming out of, there is also further discussions with Mr. McDonald on the developers agreement as it pertains to the parking agreement. So he is talking with community development on those aspects, and what came out of that, which will be coming forward to the city council for further review later, was the request for, if we're going to invest any more money in here, we'd like it for 10 more years. So that is the second option here. It's just a date change So definition and date change for softball, nothing else to the contract changes.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. Just a question. So when you delineate their premise to include that little area of sidewalk there, the one thing I want to make sure we're clear on is that that definition of premise is not the same as the definition of premise on the liquor license. We do not want alcohol
Oh,
out there
right.
on that sidewalk. So we need the clerk to take a look at that and make sure that the premise, as it's defined on the liquor license, is inside the confines of that fence and not out in the sidewalk.
Okay.
I'm fine with this as long as the other one is different.
Yep.
So with that, I'd make a motion to approve the changes and then request a review of the defined premises on the liquor license to make sure that it exempts that outside sidewalk area.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made by Alder Rasmussen and seconded by Alder Neal for approving item agenda number 3 along with Alder Rasmussen's recommendations. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And that too passes unanimously. Item number 4, discussion on possible action approving the third amendment to the Athletic Park Use Agreement for Wisconsin College Baseball, LLC, WCB.
So this is very similar, and this actually, because of the way we wrote our agreement, has an area where the combined facility is called out. So on this amendment, this follows the exact same that we had. For some reason, we wrote the use agreement for the softball a little bit different. That's why I had that highlighted there. I need to make sure I know where that fits in this amendment. But same thing, combined facility. Terms of agreement, again, 10-year extension based on that. And then the third thing on this one was in our past agreements with baseball, it's got a whole definition of how we develop their fees every 3 to 5 years. And it has to do with looking back so many years, seeing what the CPI was in all of those years, doing a lot of calculation. And we found out during the COVID time, CPI at some point was at 1, at another point it was 9. And it was very, very hard to calculate what those fees are because it was, in the last 5 years, it's fluctuated incredibly, a lot. So when we wrote the softball agreement and talked about that, we made it very simple, that it's going to increase 3% every year. We can always look back and negotiate this if we see that our cost of living or our CPI stays very consistent above this, then we can go back and have a different amendment, but 3% seems to be pretty consistent. Some years it's lower than that, some years it's higher than that, and that's typically what we do our budgets with also. So we are looking to change the rental rate in the baseball to that 3% and just make it easy without the look back. So those are the changes, and then concession stand is just the date change.
Okay, any discussion?
I'd move to approve, though, with the same clarification on the licensing.
Okay, motion by Alder Rasmussen. Alder Watson.
Yeah, I'll second that, but I had a question too. Does it have to be in the agreement to say that you'll reevaluate the adjustment like every so often, or that will just get amended when we want it to? Like if we do want it to raise it like by 4%, say the CPI statistically like just maintains 4% for like the last 5 years, and we want to update it, is it going to be easy just to do that amendment?
Yeah, if we were to change the increase, I think we would just bring back a fourth amendment with the same paragraph.
Okay, because it's our prerogative to change that. Like there won't be anybody saying, well, like in here it says it's like on a year basis, 3%.
Yeah, which this one says it will automatically increase 3%. Well, right
Depends
now
on the
in the
one.
agreement, it actually stays the same rate for a set number of years. I think it's 4 years, and then every 4 years, we look back and we increase it. So this will actually increase at 3% every year, rather than keeping it steady for a few years and then increasing.
So it won't be hard to do another amendment if we want to. If
Yeah,
if you see that
these
it's
are
more than-
agreements with the woodchucks, so we'd have to have their, I don't know if we can force them to increase it. We'll have to talk about that, but it's our use agreement, so
Yeah.
it's easy to bring an amendment back. That part of it's easy.
Okay.
Our discussions with the woodchucks might be a little bit more changing, but they're usually pretty open. When I talked to him about this, he agreed it just made more sense to make it and he agreed. At first, we had 2.5% on here, and then when we talked about it and kind of looking at that history and the average, he agreed to the 3% as well, so.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Any further discussion? Okay, then motion has been made by Alder Rasmussen and seconded by Alder Watson to approve item number 4 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that too passes unanimously. Item number 5, discussion of the role of the Parks Commission. I kind of had this put on the agenda as we talked. I think we all know what the role of the Parks Commission is, but how do we want to go forward with our role? I mean, I personally think that, you know, and I'm going to be frank, that it's a waste of our time. I don't feel we need to sit in a meeting where, you know, committee or council, where county committee members are talking about their last night's meeting while we're sitting there twiddling our thumbs. I mean, it's a bit of repetition for us. I believe, you know, there's got to be a way we can do this, as Alder Neal had suggested. Maybe I'll let him speak next about, you know, just staying abreast of what's going on with county parks in the city. And I just don't think we need to, our role needs to change in this. And with that, I'll open it up for discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Alder Neal.
if I may. Well, I look at it from both sides of that coin, though. You know, there are things that can occur outside of the city that, or on property, you know, run by the county, you know, like Marathon Park, for instance, which can impact the city through tourism, revenue, whatever, I don't know, just quality of life issues, things like that. So granted, though, you know, going to the commission meetings often is, you're kind of watching somebody do their work. That's not really your work. But there are occasions where their work overlaps us, our interests, if you will, even if it doesn't overlap our city limits. So I don't have the complete, you know, solution to that, other than to maybe have some sort of model where city representatives attend commission meetings as deemed, you know, necessary based on the subject matter of an agenda. And maybe we can just work with the director on that to kind of decide, should we be there or not? Not being there, then are we causing quorum problems? That sort of thing. So I don't have the answer. It's the model, I guess, we have to look at. So I'll open it up to anybody else.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. Once we decided that we were going to keep our committee here and manage the city stuff in the city at our committee here, it did seem to create some redundancy where having 3 members on the commission maybe is a bit excessive. And I thought the direction we were going to go was that we were going to see if the county would adjust the structure of the park commission now to maybe change that makeup. And, you know, maybe put another of their members on and take one of our members off and maybe look to maybe put a citizen member on there. I don't know how they were looking at doing it, but I don't know that we necessarily need 3 votes in the commission now. I do think that we need like 1 member at large to stay abreast of what's happening. Like just things that happen at Marathon Park, things that happen, you know, at county facilities nearby. Like say at some point that hockey arena takes off in that proposed site. So, you know, I think there's things that we want to be informed on, but that I don't know that we necessarily need a voting stake in. So I guess, were you going to meet with Corp Council, Jamie, and with Lance and see if there was a way to adjust the makeup of that commission to reduce the number of seats that the city holds there?
Yeah, well, I was going to talk to him about the makeup of the commission and how we move forward, because the commission is set up by ordinance at the county. And it was set up by ordinance through the resolutions passed by both the city and the county back in 1974, which you've all been through that a lot of times. So right now, the County Park Commission still has the jurisdiction over the operations of the city and the county parks. Keeping a city parks committee allows you to have say in your city parks, and I'm bringing things to you, but the park commission still is that overarching commission until that's changed. Now, when I did talk to Lance about it, in order for the county to change it, it needs to go through their rules and review committee, which meets I think it's meeting this year, because it usually meets the year before an election, because then it's whatever rules are changed before that election. So next April is the election for county board members, I believe. So that's so it's a process that it has to go through. It's not something they will change right away, and that's, the idea there was so part of this too is also the result of how it's been run. And that's on me and how I move forward, because how it's been run prior to me, and even me coming up to this point, was I bring everything city to this committee, I brought everything county to the park commission, and that's what the separation was. So when we went through this whole process of getting the intergovernmental agreement set up, which also talks about the park commission as still the governing body, we talked about trying to make it clear what the roles are. And I think I still have a lot of learning to do on that. I still have to figure out what items go to this committee versus what go to Park Commission. So in doing a lot of the things, going through every ordinance that we have, the state statute, which is what actually allows the county to manage the city parks, like has been deemed, and per our intergovernmental agreement, it's basically, it sets the county up for that. So the county has that role. The city allocates money towards that role. You can have say in that you like our city attorney said when we went through all of this, is you have every right to have a committee, and you have a role in that committee in that you can talk about city parks, especially. So how I was looking at how this should go forward is items that should come to this committee in the meantime until we can, I have two trains of thoughts going so far. So back up 1 second to what I had a vision for the county, for talking to Lance about at the county, is that the Park Commission still has that role of policy of our department and governing how we run as a department. And that is where it's very important that the city has equal representation of the county, because you're 50% of our department. You manage our staff just like the county manages our staff, because we are running both systems. So what I was thinking is that we would have a city parks committee like this. We could have a county parks committee that would meet regular. Those two would meet regularly. They would be separate. We would have just city council members on city, just county board members on county, or members at large, whatever that is. And then we still keep the park commission intact, but the park commission would meet quarterly, seasonally. Basically, they would be overseeing the policy items, the budget recommendations, the large vision part of what our department operates by. So my thought going forward is that items that should come to this committee would be, like tonight, specific city leases and contracts that is the city signing those leases. So that has to come through the city to the city council to approve those. If the leases and the agreements are with our department, those would go to Park Commission and not here. If we have specific city projects to get your input on how do we start, like the whole pool discussion from years ago, that's a major city issue. It has to be discussed at the Park Commission from a policy standpoint. How do we run? What are the fees? All that stuff. But the project itself and what those pools look like and who they serve would come here. Park naming and dedication requests for city parks would come through this committee, because ultimately to that is the city council. Naming something in perpetuity for a city or dedicating something, I think, should come to the city council. That's maybe a gray area when you're looking at the jurisdiction of the county. And then per our ordinances, any and our intergovernmental agreement, any urban forestry items and issues would come through this committee, because you're technically overseeing that city forester. Things that would come to the park commission, like I said, would be those contracts with our department, county parks, because right now we don't have that separate committee. If we did, then that would go there. Policy revisions, so if I update our naming policy, our sponsorship policy, that is how our department operates, that would go to the park commission. Ordinance revisions really should go to the park commission, because that affects both. Budgets will go to the park commission, because it's the operations of our department, and ultimately, those still go through the governing, like, they don't stop with the park commission. If it's a budget, then it goes to the city finance committee, goes to the county finance committee, and through those respective. And then any capital projects, that plan that goes through would go to the park commission, and then, and it's up to, and where I think it's critical to that the city has those three members is, like I said, you're 50% of our department, and if I can do a better job of keeping the operations and the policies and how our department operates with the park commission and city-specific projects and agreements through here, I think it would be better if by next year, like I said, if the Rules and Review Committee approves those two separate and then having the Park Commission kind of a seasonal or a quarterly thing, I think that will clarify it even more. But in the meantime, we've got probably a year until that's going to happen. So the other part is the mayor appoints the members from the city council onto the Park Commission. And then, or not appoints, he recommends the members of the city council to the city county administrator. The county administrator appoints those members. If anybody that's on the park commission, doesn't want to be on, you can resign that position too, and the mayor could appoint a different member of the city council. It doesn't have to be a member of this committee even, it just has to be a city council member. So that could be, that's how it used to be too, where we didn't have three people from this committee on the park commission because we never had to deal with that quorum. So now we have to post, whenever we have a park commission meeting, we have to post a city parks committee meeting too, because we have three of you on the park commission. And I think that was by design, that we had three city council members that were not part of any specific committee. So you didn't have to post that meeting of a quorum type of thing. That changed under Mayor Rosenberg, only to clarify, or to keep it, because you're on the Parks Committee, you have a say to go on the Parks Commission made sense, but it doesn't have to be that way too. So if someone doesn't want to be on, the mayor can recommend other members also. So that's a long answer to your question. But.
I have just a follow-up. So I guess under those circumstances then, while we're pending some type of change or proposed change, if the Park Commission still maintains jurisdictional control over both county and city facilities, it does make sense that we would at least retain those seats until there's some kind of a change so that voting action can be affected, right? So at some point though, if those changes get made, then we certainly could look at something different. But it does make sense that we would have those seats occupied, just so that there's a fair number of votes when the city and its facilities are a stakeholder. So I do think that at one point when the appointments were getting done, they were always making sure that at least the chair of this committee was one of the three.
Yes.
And then the others appointed at large or whatever. So, but I also think that as we were looking at consolidation and the new agreement and things, and maybe letting this committee go and then going to just the commission, I think the logic in appointing three members of this committee was continuity, assuming that this committee wasn't going to continue. But since it did, now we have three that are duly appointed, but that could also fix itself for the next term too, so.
Yeah. Well, that was also changed. There was a lull from 1974 to 2011 where there was no City Parks Committee. It was operating
Right.
with the Park Commission.
Right.
So, and that's where it got grayed.
That
And what was-
reemerged in the Lawrence administration.
Yeah, and I think it was unclear at that time of what the expectations were, what the role of the director was in order to work with the chairs of each committee and what goes where. And it's something that going through all this last year and going through the agreement and trying to figure out who does what and who's in charge of what, I think I'm still learning, so I need to do a better job of making sure that I'm not wasting anybody's time too on that, but that we're covering what we should be covering, and we're not trying to duplicate things.
Sure.
Would this, Ann, would you like to contribute anything or not?
Doing a great job.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I think you have a path forward.
Yep, I will
So-
keep working on it.
Okay, item number 6, educational items.
Yeah, so we just have some park updates to let you know that we've been working on. It's been busy. We have been really working on the clubhouse at Athletic Park. We're trying to get that done before May, before the first softball and baseball games out there. And this was some renovations to make the bathrooms ADA, to make the whole, actually, clubhouse ADA, and to make it usable by both men and women, because there'll be baseball comes in, they take their stuff out, softball comes in, they take their stuff out. It's going to be kind of a revolving door and make the flow of it a little bit better with some updated cubbies and flooring. River Life, we have a landscaping contract, as we always have with that, with the mowing and the flowers. 9 Mile, there's some renovations there, ADA compliant restroom as well. These are ARPA dollars that we had going forward. So Marathon Park, we had the dinosaur show this last weekend. That was big, both ices out. If you've been following what we've been working on at the county board, we have a mat system that we'll be buying for a temporary fix for a few years to get ice in rink 2, and we have to think of that long term. We did just get some not so good news on Friday that the brick grant that we have currently to complete the ice arena study, as well as what we applied for possible construction, is no longer. And it goes back to 2020, 2023 grants. So Wisconsin Emergency, the very preliminary, we got an email, we don't know all the details yet. I've been reimbursed for about half of the grant, and some of it I haven't even incurred yet. So the county's in a really good position actually with that. But Wisconsin Emergency Management is still finding out more information and will hopefully give us more direction on that moving forward. That came from the federal government on Friday. And then general maintenance, hopefully our snow plowing is over, then we can start getting everything ready for the spring. And then the other thing I don't have on here, but just to add, is our offices moved today to the basement of the university. So if you go in on the far west entrance off of Garfield, you'll see a door. There's a sign there with our logo on it and everything. You go in that door and you go right downstairs. It's a mess at the moment, but we will be fully moved in this week. Got one more load tomorrow from 212, and that's where our offices will be.
Anything on the beer garden at all?
Oh, this is just an update that we are working with the city attorney's office to prepare the ordinance, as we discussed, that needs to be updated to allow the department to possibly have beer gardens, and then I'll also be taking this through the county as well. But the plan is to take it to the next public health and safety meeting, and that's where it will go.
All right, Jamie, thank you very much. Item number 7, any future agenda items? Alder Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, something that's been a concern for me, this is my 9th year on this committee, and we've had extensive discussions with the director, previous director, previous forester, and I'm talking about the city's, urban forestry, what we, for a long time, called our canopy. And our canopy is disappearing dramatically. And I know with the ash borer problem and all that, a big influencer of that. But we did set up a philosophy, if you will, best practices years ago on how to treat and respect our urban trees. even to the point where if there were a new sidewalk being put in, we would find ways to circumnavigate that tree, maybe get an easement for a couple of feet, so that, like we said, every engineer is always straight line, but I can think over on McIndoe Street, a house that has 2 instances of the sidewalk doing this, because it was, there were at one time large trees there. So the sidewalk was redesigned to accommodate them. Now, even dealing with, I'm sorry, this is a little bit lengthier than you might want, but even dealing with the ash borer problem, it was my hope that we would deal with it in a very phased manner, because you could have healthy ash trees. And now they're wholesale taken down. I looked down Fulton Street, which has a street project coming up. They're all gone. Every last one of them. You are left with no canopy. Where there used to be, a nice neighborhood feel, it is now flattened. And this is, I see it on a number of streets. Wherever there's going to be work done, they're all down.
Challenge.
And my feeling is we have to have more respect for our trees than that. Even if it's an ash tree. If it's in good shape, then it can be one of the trees, or 2 or 3 of the trees that stay on the block for another 2, 3, 4 years, until such time as other, new ones can try to catch up. Right now, we're looking at reestablishing our canopy maybe by 2075, the way things are going. I think that we as a committee should be more active in influencing this, rather than I just drive down the street one day and they're all gone. And nobody came to talk to us about it. And now we're stuck with this just blighted landscape. And I'm not convinced that every one of those trees was diseased, infested, had to go. A lot of times I think it's engineers making decisions about expediency. So I really, if we could start something now as a committee, going forward, kind of, pull off the pedal a little bit on this and make more informed decisions about our canopy, if you will. I think that that's our duty, because we're losing it. I mean, in my 25 years here, the change has been dramatic. So,
Just to add to that, I think I tend to agree with you. I mean, I look at Thomas Street, how beautiful that canopy was there. Look at McIndoe Street. Even look at, I think most recently was North 4th or 5th Avenue. Any time a street is stated for repair, the trees get poof, done, gone, and boy, if there's certainly a way, you can save them or run because, you're also talking about running water and sewer lines and stuff, which might have to also say that tree has to come down.
we have, though, put together
So-
guidelines for the city. I mean, they were established through the Director of Public Works and a previous Director of Parks, and through this committee. I'd like to see if those guidelines can get pulled back up and reviewed and make sure that we're in line with what we're supposed to be doing. I'm really not happy about what I'm seeing.
Well, let's do that then.
So, if I may, so what I can do is I think our forester can come and give an urban forestry update, but you're really talking 2 different issues. And one issue is this committee, and one issue is infrastructure. Because so the Emerald Ash Borer Plan, we are following that very, very closely, and we only remove so many trees every year. We treat a third of those trees every year, and then we plant so many trees. And then we also have a grant that I'd like him to give you an update on because we have an extra 400 trees coming. When it comes to street reconstruction, that's an infrastructure discussion. Our city forester doesn't have a lot of say in that at all, or any say other than these trees are coming down and then we're going to replant them. Where can we replant them? So I'm not really sure where that should start. Really, I feel it should be an infrastructure discussion. because it is when the streets are reconstructed, and it has to do a lot with what Alder Larson just said on what needs to go in the ground and what can be saved above the ground. I do know that our city engineers, where they can, they've talked to our city forester about saving a tree or doing something different. One of the things they did that we really like to see down by the mall redevelopment is they're putting a new type of planting bed in for the trees, and it's got a really modern, I'm not even going to say it right, but it's a box that they put it in that helps with the tree roots and the growth, will also save the sidewalks in the future. So there is some things happening, but the Emerald Ash Borer and how we're managing it, I'd love for John to come and give you an update on where we're at with that, along with that big grant that we received, which that money is still coming to us. But the street reconstruction, he can maybe fill you in on what his working's with, but maybe we get the city engineer here at that same meeting, but I think that needs to also then go to infrastructure for that discussion.
I have just a follow-up on that. We did set some standards, and I think at one point, the SISM committee, in its prior incantation, learned about a program that was in play in other areas where they were attempting to minimize large mature tree removal with street construction projects. And they did implement some of those things, but not all of those things. But I was going to suggest that we get a urban forestry presentation. We had John at my neighborhood group recently. He is fantastic. And he really then can give us some insight about what species of trees we have that we're overplanted on. So some of those, when they do those removals, they're replanting different types of trees to diversify the mix. Because apparently we're seriously overplanted on maple, which I had no idea.
Yes.
But it's like stuff like that is what he brought out at the neighborhood meeting. He also has some great insight as to what they do with the wood from the trees. They're actually partnering now with the school district with shop classes to do things with that timber and not just waste that wood. So I think we should have him come, and he really, I mean, our neighborhood group has had him in twice, and they really enjoy him. If he could come and give his same presentation here would be super helpful.
Alder Lukens.
Thank you. Last summer, on the southeast side with Eau Claire Boulevard being redone, we had many, many conversations about trees. And I love trees, so I don't want to see any taken down, if possible, if at all possible. At the same time, you know, because I got lots of calls and heard from lots of people. John, I agree, he's wonderful, and I think that it would be wonderful to have him come back in for another presentation. But, you know, what he told me is they were trying to save any trees that they could, and some of them that they left, he said will likely still have to be taken down. And it was a combination of ash and also trees because of the street reconstruct. So infrastructure, I think that would be good, because my street is supposed to be redone in a few years. So I'd appreciate if that's addressed before that looked at. But I also know I had some maples that came down in some storms or split. And I learned then that if they're not planted correctly, they are really at risk for splitting and coming down. And the arborist that I had come look at those maples and take down even showed me, now this was I think on those are ash trees on my boulevard, but still like how they're planted is important too. And so he had told me too that they're putting some ring or something around them so that it will force the roots down further. But anyway, so just to say, I've really appreciated John's work. He's come and spoken to our neighborhood groups too. And yeah, I really believe that he tries to do what he can. I really do. So I look forward to further discussions on it too. Thank you.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? Okay, then item number 8 is next meeting, Monday, May 5th, 2025, 5:15, Council Chambers, City Hall, 407 Grant Street, Wausau, Wisconsin. Item number 9, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Alder Neal, a second by
second.
Alder Lukens. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for coming, everybody. We are adjourned. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Good luck moving into your new office.
Yeah, come and visit. We can show you around.
Well, I will once you
Well, we'll
get,
have our next park commission meeting there.
once you get situated.
Yeah.
Catch up with you tomorrow, JB.
Okay.